Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today it's time to announce round 2 of Battle of the Booktubers. That's right, it is time for round 2 of Battle of the Booktubers. If you guys did not watch the original announcement video for Battle of the Booktubers, I will link that in the cards in the description. You're gonna get a lot more information in the first little bit of that video, but I will recap some of it here. This is a competition that has 16 competitors. It has 4 rounds. Each round has 4 competitors within. Within each round, the competitors gave each other recommendations and they earn points based on the ratings that those recommendations receive. Each booktuber had to read 2 recommendations from every other competitor in their round, and booktubers will receive more points for the top recommendation and less points for their second recommendation. Throughout this month on Tuesdays, you will be receiving the competitors' vlogs, which will give you the information on the books that they read and the ratings that they gave them. On Sundays of this month, I will be giving you guys sneak peeks, little glimpses behind the curtain of the competition, as well as racking up the points for you all. There will also be a live show at the end of the month where you guys can sit and chat with the competitors as well as figure out who the winner of this round will be. But without further ado, I want to introduce the competitors of round 2 to you all.
Hello my loves, it's Kirsten from the channel Reading Nymphs, and thank you to Danny for inviting me to Battle of the Booktubers. I am so excited to take part. It's going to be so much fun. But before I get into why I'm winning this, let's get into what I like to read. I read a mixture of all different things. My most read genres tend to be fantasy, murder mysteries, dark academia. However, my favourite type of books to read are darker, more gothic leaning works, such as gothic classics, whether it's a gothic fantasy or I love gothic leaning books. They are so good. To be fair, I enjoy pretty much anything. The genre I read the very least is contemporary. I don't tend to read much contemporary works, although I am trying to branch out a little bit more. I would rather read a thriller book than a contemporary. So with regards to my channel though, I post a minimum of twice a week, sometimes more. I do 2 main types of videos. So on Fridays you get weekly reading vlogs. So that's kind of what I'm up to, what I've been reading, what I've been cooking, what I've been doing my day to day. That's all in the weekly reading vlogs. And then on Sundays, they're more sit down videos. So you'll get the TBR videos, the wrap ups, book recommendations, things like that. If you enjoy rambly book recommendation videos, that is what you're going to get.
I love a good ramble, and Kirsten, all of the meals that you make on your vlogs look absolutely delicious. I can't wait to figure out what you're cooking up during the competition. Let's figure out who's next.
Hello, I'm Josie from Josie Talks About Books, and I'm here to give all of you a little bit of an introduction to me as a reader. So I like to read a little bit of everything. I do tend to lean towards historical fiction, but I do like to try and read as varied as I can, just because there are good books in every genre, and I want to find them all. My channel is still relatively new. I'm still figuring a lot of things out. So when it comes to my channel, it's a little bit of everything still. I'm still kind of finding my footing, figuring out what I like to do. The main thing though is that I like to talk about the books that I read and the books that I'm excited about. And so the various different ways that I can do that, I try to do. Be that in reading vlogs, wrap-ups, in tags, all of that stuff.
Well then, I am super happy that you agreed to be part of this competition, Josie, because you will indeed have to talk about books with us. Who is competitor number 3?
My name is Michaela and my channel name is Michaela Reads. I talk about the books I'm reading, the books I want to read in the future. The genres that I tend to read and talk about on my channel is primarily horror, thriller, and mystery, but I do as well enjoy nonfiction, and I have been really loving historical fiction lately.
Ooh, I believe Josie might have some book recommendations for you, Michaela. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. Look at this competition, bringing book lovers together. Love to see it. And our last competitor for this round of the competition is...
Hey friends, my name is Rainy and my booktube channel is Rainy Blue Reads. My channel is mainly about, honestly, all different types of genres. I started out as a thriller girly, and then I went in hardcore into romance, and then I went into fantasy, and I kind of landed in the fantasy romance era, and I'm living my best life there. That's pretty much what I read, but I do read all other types of genres. Like, I'm not opposed to reading other genres. I love doing reading vlogs. Those are my favorite things to post. I love doing unique ideas that not other people are doing. So like different ways that I can like read books for specific vlogs or specific themed vlogs. That's really my jam. I mean, I do sit down videos too, but it's not as much of my favorite thing of that. So if you're interested in like chaotic vlogs where like kids are in it, I'm reading all different types of books, I give very real, honest, raw reviews of how I view books, then this is the channel for you.
Oh, I love the chaos, Rainy. I can't wait to see what mayhem you bring to your vlogs in the near future. Now, just like in round one, I did ask the competitors to talk to me a little bit about their strategy for this competition, how they decided which recommendations to give to which booktubers. So let's hear from the competitors what they thought.
My strategy for the Battle of the Booktubers, when I was recommending books to my fellow competitors, I really tried to research their Goodreads and compare what books we had in common. What books did they have on TBRs? Was there anything that I had read and loved? I think that we all had a pretty good diverse range of genres that we loved and that we primarily read from. And so my main strategy recommending books to my competitors, even when I don't read their favorite genres, was to pull books from my favorites that might have had somewhat of those elements in those books. So for instance, if somebody's favorite genre is fantasy, then I tried to pick books that I have rated highly that had fantasy elements in there, even if it wasn't strictly like a book that falls within the fantasy genre.
I like this strategy a lot, giving them a little bit of a taste of what they're used to, but maybe pulling them into something unfamiliar as well. I like it. I hope it works out for you, Michaela. What about you, Josie?
As for this competition, I'm pretty confident. Actually, I'm pretty confident in my recommendations. So my competitors, as you now know, are Kirsten, Rainy, and Michaela. We swapped some reading bios and some videos that we thought would give our competitors a pretty decent idea of the kind of readers we are and what we like to read. And so I did a deep dive into all three of them. I felt like a little bit of a stalker, but you know, it's all in the name of the competition. So I did a little bit of a deep dive into all three. And I mean, all three of them are pretty established booktubers at this point. They have a lot of videos, they've read a lot of books. So when I was going to compile my list of recommendations to my competitors, I felt a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit out of my depth, a little bit scared. I was concerned that I wouldn't find books to recommend to them that they hadn't already either read or heard of and dismissed. But you know, I'm up for the challenge. It made me even more motivated to really nail this. So I watched a bunch of their videos. I went to their Goodreads pages. I actually ended up recommending a mixture of books that I've read and books that I haven't read to all three. And this comes down to what I think is my greatest strength in this competition. Personally, I have a very, very good radar for picking up books I know I'm going to like. I'm very, very rarely disappointed in the books that I read because I have a really good radar. I've never applied it to another person before, but I decided to try for this challenge, and that's kind of what I was working my way towards when I was watching all these videos, was kind of to try and get into their reading minds a little bit. I looked up the books that they really liked, the books that they rated lowly, and I compared our own ratings so I could kind of see where we agree and where we disagree. All of this kind of data that I tried to collect was the basis for the recommendations that I ended up giving my competitors. So again, I recommended some books that I have read and some books that I haven't read, but all of them are books that I'm very, very, very confident that my competitors are going to enjoy. This could go really, really well or terribly, terribly poorly. It'll all depend on whether or not my radar actually works for other people too. And so I'm actually really, really interested in seeing how this goes for me in this competition, because I'm so curious as to whether or not I actually did nail these recommendations.
I for one hope your radar is on point in this competition. You are taking a bit of a risk recommending things that you haven't read yet, but it's worked for people in the past, so I hope that it works for you. You also sound like you've really done your homework. I can't wait to figure out what people think. Let's figure out how Rainy did.
Let's talk strategy for this booktuber battle competition, because I had a lot of strategy, I will say, when I was going into this competition, because I am a competitive girly, so I am here to win, okay? What went through my mind is that I was going to win, and I needed to be very strategic about this. So I did a lot of research, friends. I did a lot of research. I watched a bunch of videos of all my competitors. I looked at like their favorite books. I looked at every book they had read in Goodreads, and then I basically took favorite books of theirs that like reminded me of other books and went to go see, first off, is that a book that they actually say people would like? Like on Goodreads, you know how it'll recommend, like, if you liked this book, you'll like this book. So I cross-referenced it there. I also cross-referenced on the library, because you can go on to the public library, and if you type in a book, it'll show books that they recommend you read that are like that book. And so I was like cross-referencing things left and right. I was like doing my due diligence, okay? So it took me forever to figure out what I was going to recommend to these other girly pops out there in the wild. And I only recommended books that I had read. It didn't matter if I loved or hated them, because I feel like just because I don't like a book doesn't mean another person's not gonna, especially if they like certain books that are like that book. But I only recommended books that I have read, because I feel like it was kind of a risk to do books that I hadn't read. But I mean, I don't know. There were possible contenders, but I only did books that I had read. And so that was my strategy going in.
Interesting. A change in strategy, only recommending books that you've read. I think this would probably be my comfort zone of recommending books that I've read, but I don't know. With so many varied genres throughout this competition, it might be hard to do as well. Well, Rainy, I hope your recommendations going out to the girly pops work out for you. Let's figure out what Kirsten did.
Now let's get into this actual challenge. It has been so much fun. So I had a really finite strategy for this. We had to give 3 videos that kind of encompass our current reading tastes. And it was really fun to watch all of those. So I watched all 3 of those videos from each person, but then I did my extra research. I put my Detective Kirsten hat on. I read a lot of murder mysteries and I try and solve them, and I tend to have quite a good ratio of being able to solve things. So I decided to apply the same technique that I do for that, and that is notebook, research, let's work this out. I had so much fun with it. It was absolutely amazing. It was really nice to see these different YouTubers that I hadn't come across before and really get to know them and what the books they like. I had so much fun with it. And then on top of that, I was checking their Goodreads, seeing what they had recently read, what star rating they had given it, also what they've got shelved as what's on their physical TBR. Like, I was in it. It took me probably more time than I care to admit, but it was great. I loved it. It was so much fun.
I freaking love it. Detective Kirsten on the case. Did she solve it? I guess we'll find out together. The last thing I asked competitors to do was talk about their competition. Talk about who they believed was easiest to give recommendations to, hardest to give recommendations to, who their biggest competitors are, and why they think they're gonna win. So let's see what they had to say.
In the end, for all 3 of my competitors, I ended up with so many books that I felt so confident about that I had a hard time narrowing down the list of books that I ended up recommending. I'm very, very happy with the books that I settled on and the books that I ended up recommending. I think when it comes to which of my competitors is going to be the biggest competition, it might be Kirsten. I think out of the 4 of us, if any of us had an easier time than the others finding recommendations for the competitors, it might have been her, just because of the kind of backlog of books that she's read. She's read a lot in a lot of different genres. So I think she might be the biggest competition. I do think my biggest concern is the fact that they've read a lot, and the more you read, the pickier you get about higher ratings and kind of what you really look for and what you want from a book. But I actually genuinely think that we're going to end up with a round where everyone kind of really enjoys most of what we read. I genuinely think that this is going to be a tight race. I'm quite certain that I've managed to recommend books to my competitors that they're either going to be excited about or going to be intrigued about. Both are great starting points. So I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to seeing my competitors' videos. I'm really excited to hear what they have to say about the books that I recommended. I'm really excited to read the books that I've been recommended. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for these books. So I think we're all just going to have a great time. I'm so happy that I'm part of this. This is going to be just so much fun.
Aw, I hope you enjoyed your reads, Josie, and I look forward to seeing a tight race as well. I think all of you are amazing booktubers, and I'm sure you all gave amazing recommendations. What What about you, Rainey?
Honestly, the hardest competitor that I think it was to choose books for was Josie, only because she doesn't have nearly as many YouTube videos as the rest of us. So there wasn't that many, and I'm pretty sure I almost watched all of them. And so I was just trying to like figure out, okay, what type of books does she generally go for? Like, should she read all types of books? Are there specific books that she likes more than others? So I feel like she was a little difficult in that regard, but overall it was perfectly fine. As for any that I think I have in the bag, honestly, I kind of feel like I knocked them all in the head. I'm not gonna lie about that. I think they're all in the bag. If I had to choose one, the one that I feel I bagged the most would be Michaela, just because, like I said, I used to be a huge thriller horror reading girly, and so I feel like through the books that I saw that she likes to read and that she gives 5 stars, I feel like I know her brand of thriller and horror, and so I'm just really hoping it paid off on that. But I mean, I think I did good on all of them, but especially Michaela. As for who is the biggest competitor in my round, I'm really feeling like Kirsten is just gonna come out of the dark and like annihilate some of us. Not me, because I'm gonna win, but she might come out of the dark and it's gonna be like neck and neck for a second. I don't know why. I feel like she's shifty. I feel like she's shady. Like she's just gonna like sneak up on us and like be the sleeper of the group, and so I feel like she's someone to definitely watch out for. And then why do I think I will win? Well, 1, I'm extremely competitive. 2, I did the work, okay? I put in the time. I have been trying out here in these streets, trying to figure out what books are going to be best for everybody. And honestly, I just think I have manifested it to myself that I'm going to win. So I'm going to be very excited when I receive that first place trophy, and you know, I'm considered Booktuber, the Battle of the Booktubers best. I'm fully ready to move on in the competition. And so that is me in a nutshell. I hope you're ready for the ride.
I'm ready. Actually, I'm not. I need to go hunt for some trophies. In the meantime, let's figure out what Kirsten has to say.
There was Michaela from Michaela Reads, who I found the easiest to give book recommendations for. Like, I feel really confident in the books that I've chosen for her. They have kind of similar tastes in terms of more gothic leaning, and so I felt really confident in being able to give good recommendations that I know they will like, especially after watching their Frankenstein retellings recommendations video. I knew that they were on the same wavelength as me because I love Frankenstein. I also adore Frankenstein retellings, so I honestly think that she's going to be, for me, the one to beat, just because of how well I feel like we could give recommendations to each other. It will be a fun one. I mean, on the flip side of this, I found Rainey from Rainy Blue Reads the hardest, because as much as I do love fantasy, I don't tend to dabble in fantasy romance, and that seems to be what Rainey's been mainly into at the minute, and I'm not up to scratch with all of the fantasy romance recommendations. As much as there's loads of them out there, I haven't read as many, and I don't really want to be giving out recommendations that I haven't read, because that way I know that the book recommendations I'm giving are good recommendations. So I really wanted to have read them before I recommended. So I found Rainey a little bit harder. Still feel confident in what I've chosen, but I'm not sure if they're going to hit all-time new favorites. That being said, I think Josie from Josie Talks About Books is going to be a dark horse in this competition. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of... I feel like, yeah, they're the dark horse of this competition, because they read more books that I wouldn't have thought about reading, books that I wouldn't have heard of before. So I feel like because of that, they're going to be able to recommend things that we may not have heard of, and that way it will give them a extra head start, especially if we like it, because we can get extra points that way. So I feel like Josie could be a dark horse. Regardless of that though, I know I'm going to be the one to win this competition. I have read books for such a long time. I have been reading since I was a small child and have not stopped. You will not see me without a book. Literally my life is around books. I read books, I make videos about books, and I watch videos about books. So I tend to have a good grasp on what books are out there and have a good idea of, oh, okay, if you like this book, here's this book recommendation. So I feel really confident that I am going to win this one just because of my sheer knowledge and backlog of books that I have read and can give recommendations to. So you can all stand aside because I'm winning this thing.
I'm interested to figure out if your lifelong love of reading has definitely given you a leg up in the competition, because some of your competitors think you're the one to beat. Last but not least, let's see what Michaela had to say.
I am pretty confident in the books that I recommended out to my competitors. I feel like I have a good chance of getting a 5-star rating out of somebody. I will say that Rainy was a little bit more difficult to find recommendations for because I know that she loves reading fantasy romance, and she said that that was one of her favorite genres. And that is something that I don't read a lot of. Now, if there was one competitor that I think I have a good chance of getting a 5-star rating out of, I would guess that that person might be Kirsten. And I'm only hoping so because both of the books that I recommended to her, one was one of my favorite books of last year, and the other book was from my favorite author of all time. I almost feel like Josie and I have the closest aligned taste in books. So I am really hoping I might get a 5-star rating out of Josie. I really tried to recommend books to all my competitors that could be generally liked regardless of what your favorite genre is or what your most read genre is. The reason why I think I might win this competition, I have actually read all of the books that I recommended out to everyone. All of my recommendations were, at least for me, either a 4 or 5-star book. So I really hope that my competitors will enjoy these reads and that I might get a good rating out of them. I am really excited for this competition. I cannot wait to see how the rankings fall and who ends up on top. Let the battle begin.
Let the battle begin indeed. I am so excited to figure out what the culminating events of round 2 will be, who the best booktuber in this round is at recommending books. I can't wait to see what happens. Don't forget to tune in next week on Tuesday to see these lovely competitors' vlogs and figure out what happens. Make your predictions in the comments down below. Who do you think will win this round and why? Until then, happy reading.